understanding of like womanism or understanding of basic intersectionality is that when we say we're fighting for Black women, we can't actually say we're fighting for every single Black woman, but an understanding of how the system sees Black women as a whole. So obviously we don't know every individual story of every Black woman, but we can say as a whole, it seems the system might forget they exist in some realm. So maybe we can help them, or maybe why aren't they going to colleges, or maybe what, you know what I mean? That's how we tackle these ideas. At least I do. So it's not that Oprah is oppressed as an individual. It's just that prior to her becoming a billionaire, she most certainly was. As a woman on television and as a Black representation in media, her story is amazing. You should definitely watch the doc.
Yeah, there's a reason I brought her up, but
please.
Okay, so you think that before she was a billionaire, she was oppressed?
I believe she faced a lot of oppression. Yeah, from her story. Yeah, you should. Her story is really.
Yeah, I mean, poverty and whatnot. You know.
Yeah, totally. Classism.
But it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't to do with the fact she was Black, was it?
Well, I think classism is a directly reflects onto race in America. So I don't think you can say classism in racism. You can say both. They exist separate and they overlap, just like many other things, honestly. Just because you're polyamory doesn't mean you're open relationship, but they can overlap. Sorry, I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the same thing. Race and classism. Okay, so they exist and they also on occasion will overlap. Absolutely.
Yeah. But this is why it's worth distinguishing and not really very productive to say, well, I'm for minority women, because then you're not taking into account classism. It wasn't a very useful vector in the first place. If you're advocating for the rights of Michelle Obama, you know, she's fine. But this is the problem with taking people as groups. It's the problem with this is why Hillary Clinton, one of the most powerful women in the world, sitting there going, "Oh, it's because I'm a woman." It's like, no, you can't play the woman card because you're Hillary Clinton. Your particular privileges and set of life circumstances make you like the envy of men, of almost every man who has ever lived would love to have the sort of power and influence that Hillary Clinton had. And the fact that she can then use identity politics, go, oh well, let me whip out my woman card. It's like it's a smokescreen. It's not true. It's a nonsense. You know.
Well,
so
I do consider
why give her
Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is a pioneer for women. When she was younger, there were many, many challenges for women to have representation in law. She moved through. She has an incredible political career, regardless of how you feel about her politics. I mean, the woman has done things. She has, an amazing resume. I will say the thing about Hillary that makes her sort of being able to pull the woman card when she first ran against Barack Obama was the media coverage was obviously sex biased. She had this moment where she cried and she said, "I'm just really worried for the country." And I remember the news ran with that as like, look at, she's unstable. She's a woman. Are we sure this is what we want? And it became this narrative that I heard I was very conservative at one point in my life. I've met Glenn Beck. I've been on Rush Limbaugh's show. Like I've met Sean Hannity. I was very conservative at one point in my life. And that's the stuff that we were taught. It's the stuff that we were told. I wrote a whole book when I was a conservative about how women can never be president because periods, # oh my God. So it's one of those things where there is an idea and a culture that reminds people of their place. And what we're doing is challenging that status and that quota, that understanding of stereotypes. We saw it with Trayvon Martin's death. He was a kid doing what most kids do, but the justifications for his death from people were amazing. And all of them had to do with what kid walks in the rain with a hoodie on. I'm like, every kid ever. But that was amazing to me. And that I think was inherent bias on their opinions because their own sons would do those things. They didn't say anything about it. So it's a disconnect. It's not malicious. It's not even cruel. To be completely honest, I think it's just a disconnect. It's a misunderstanding of experience.
Going back to the Hillary Clinton crying thing, I find that very interesting. Do you think that the electorate would have been accepting of Barack Obama crying about, like, the future of the country, having a little sob? Do you think that would have improved his campaign?
You know what's interesting is I did think about that after I witnessed Glenn Beck crying at a conference around all these masculine conservative men. Bear with me here, I got a point. And I remember saying, like, are we anti-men crying? Isn't men crying like they're pussies? And everyone was like, yeah, but Glenn's a conservative, so maybe he's crying for real. It's not like liberal tears. So there's obviously bias in media. And I love, like, as much as I love Fox News with good popcorn, it's a bias. I think Barack would have gotten hell from masculine...
That's the thing. I mean, Glenn Beck, everyone's surely seen the video of him putting on the fake tears, right? When Glenn Beck does it, Yeah, exactly. It's an affectation.
Right. But let me answer your question.
Okay.
Just watching the media play its game, I 100% guarantee you Barack Obama would have been painted as a weak man, but not a weak black man.
Sure, but that's because Obama was a weak man.
Well, definitions. You think he was a weak man?
Strong. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, physically strong?
Physically and politically. Very weak.
Oh, I favored him as a man in general. I favored his ideas, but okay, that's
I'm not saying
fine.
his ideas were necessarily bad, but I think that he was just not a strong leader, and I think you'd be hard pressed to give an example of how he was. But this is the thing. Like, the top position in your country is the top position in the world. Someone who's going to break down and have a little bit of a sob isn't appropriate for that position at all.
I disagree. As a future therapist, once I finish school, I actually think crying is a perfectly natural and wonderful instinct that evolution gave us. It's a present that they gave us to release tension, to release stress, to reset. Sure. I think it's an amazing tool to mourn. I think sometimes when you eat really spicy food, it's nice when water comes down your face. It's a cooling mechanism. Like, there's all these beautiful things. I try to look at it as a positive versus a negative, and then I try to move forward. There are plenty of reasons why.
That's the thing. It also is a negative. Those things might be true for you as an individual, right?
Socially, it can be a negative.
Yeah, and you're the leader of the free world. You have a massive social responsibility, and to be seen being so weak as to cry on TV, that is not inspirational. That is not something that is going to give anyone, and especially your enemies, any kind of pause for thoughts. You know, that's not going to make them think that America is where it deserves to be, where it should be, and it's definitely staying the course. And that in and of itself is going to create
So you're worried about marketing versus authenticity. That's fine.
No, I'm worried about politics there. I'm worried about I mean, marketing. No. I don't want anything to buy anything. It's what they will think, regardless of what I want them to think. So
you want us to buy? No, we want Americans. We want people outside of America to buy the fact that we're big and bad and scary, and we're going to nuke you at any moment. We want people to buy that idea so they remain afraid of us. But it's a gimmick. It's like, it's true. We are powerful. Yeah. We're going to possibly smartly avoid nuclear war if possible, but we still have to threaten like we're going to hit the button. Okay. Hopefully we don't.
Kim Jong-un, his nuclear program has fallen apart. Like, he's nuked one of his own cities. His test site's in ruins. It's an irradiated mess. They have no. I'm so tired of Americans talking about nuclear war with North Korea. But it's not going to happen. No one's going to engage in a nuke fight with America. It's not going to happen.
That's great. That's great news for all of us.
Yeah, and so it's not nukes that you have to think about, right? What it is about is your conventional Army and Navy and Air Force. And when you actually look at America's Army, Navy, and Air Force, it's unbelievable. Like, the British Empire used to operate on something called the two-power standard. So they would, like, add up the French and Russian navies and say, right, these are the two nearest competitors. If our navy is as big as them combined, then we will comfortably remain the world hegemon, peace through strength, right? The United States has almost a world power standard, as in the United States spends almost as much as the entire rest of the world combined on their military, which means the United States, from a military perspective, is definitely prepared to go to war with literally everyone to maintain its position of dominance. And the United States is so unbelievably more dominant than any of these other power. I just can't stand hearing the left talk about anything to do with the United States geopolitical influence, because you guys are wildly out of touch with how reality is. The US is the most powerful nation that has ever been. And so, you have nothing to fear there. But part of power is perception. Like you say, marketing, I suppose you call it. And if you have a leader like Obama, who you know is not going to use this military, because he wasn't going to use the military. He was going to use drones to kill randos in Pakistan, but there was no way he was going to authorize an invasion of Russia, is there, if the need arose? And what happened? Putin whipped him on the international stage. Putin absolutely just kept pushing and pushing and pushing to the point where, I mean, Obama didn't have a red line left, did he? And so this is why, unfortunately, your president can't be seen on TV crying. I'm sorry, and I'm saying this as not someone who's an American. I'm saying this as someone who thinks that it's a good thing for the world to have an English-speaking hegemon with a history from English common law, from individualism, from liberalism, to be the dominant world power. That is a good thing for everyone on Earth. So the Americans have a responsibility to maintain a president who has a backbone, which is why I've become an even stronger supporter of Trump than I was back when I was just opposing Hillary. He at least has the stones. And you guys, I hate watching the left undermine him in this regard. When your president gets out there and does something on the world stage, you should be in full-throated support of him, no matter how you feel about the guy.
I'm going to be honest. I've never held that belief, mostly because I'm a registered independent. So I've never been a Democrat. I've never just voted for parties. I don't just promote people because they're my leaders. I hold them accountable.
I'm not
and I would like I'm sorry.
General,
I'm sorry.
In general.
Okay, you said you the left, and I wasn't sure if you meant me the left or like you the left. Okay, so I wasn't sure.
I just meant the left, but
sure. The only thing with Trump, I would like him to be held accountable, and I would like him I would take crying over the buffoonery of his tweets. Yeah, personally, because she cried once. Yeah, he tweets every day.
Bringing peace to the Korean Peninsula. His You need to think more. Like you wanted to bring identity politics into the realm of power politics, but as soon as you go into international politics, you seem to be able to abandon that frame of mind completely. But imagine that frame of mind in international politics, and then think: do you want your country to look weak and vulnerable? And the answer is just no, obviously.
So really fast. My realm of specialty is not international politics because I'm not well versed in a lot of foreign governments.
Sure.
My focus is how to make Americans have more civility and kindness towards one another with strong backbones, because I still am like that conservative cowgirl in my heart. And I want people to be fierce and strong and stand up for themselves. I want them to cry if they need to. And when you're done, you can come talk to me. And those are the kinds of things that I do believe. There needs to be leaders in leader positions. But I do not think a woman crying once should disqualify her from being a leader when 99% of the time she met the same criteria as the men who were running against her. And I think that Trump needs to be also held accountable for his childish behavior, which I don't think is very dignified, but that's maybe my standard of dignity is maybe just a little different than other people's. So maybe that's
I agree with you. Okay, so Hillary Clinton can cry all she wants in private. That's fine. I don't care. I also agree with you that they are just people. Everyone has to have a cry sometime, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But when you have a role to play in public, you want to be the leader of the free world. You've got a duty to maintain a certain kind of gravitas. And I agree with you that Trump's Twitter presence is rarely doing this. As silly as it is, it's not doing it. But do you not think that, I don't want to get onto Trump really, but you can see why the adversarial nature of the left, it's pathological, the hatred of Donald Trump at this point. For example, 6 months ago when Trump was tweeting ravenously at Kim Jong-un, I saw lots of sort of verified lefty journos almost sympathizing with Kim Jong-un, defending Korea, defending him from Trump. And I found that really strange and for exactly the reason we're seeing now, as soon as Trump starts making friends with him, which he is doing, we see, Kim Jong-un's a dictator and all this. And of course he is, But why weren't you saying that 6 months ago? And really it's because it was just partisan politics. It was just you fighting for the team and he was the other team. At the end of
completely.
With my friend. And I'm not saying you do this, obviously. It's... No, of course not. And it's something that it's a real pathology in America that just... it's everywhere, but it's really bad in America. It's really bad. And a lot of it, I think, stems from this kind of identity politics because ultimately it is the politics of victimhood. I can't see how you can empower people by approaching them as if they're the victims. So
I'm going to say something.
Would you guys be willing, Brittany can have a last word. Would you guys be willing to take some questions?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I'm down. Carl, do you have time? Okay. So I'm going to say something. I'm going to say something that I know is going to sound extremely offensive, but I want people to hear me when I say it. I don't think most people have a great, deep, and thorough understanding of their belief systems. And what I pose to everyone on the left, right, or middle is if you're going to confront me especially, I would like to know the logical reasoning, because there must have been a moment you came to that made you go, oh, this is what I'm fighting for. And what I don't want you to do is become another label that you have to be identified by your whole life. You are not labels. Your life is defined by labels because that's how the world works, but you are not defined by your labels. And that's what I want people to remember. Learn the game, live the game, learn to live outside of it when you want. But if the world is going to run through labels, then I don't know what other method to use to get above.